Hello, my name is Julie Edwards, and I am the Director of Health Promotion and Wellness at the University of Chicago. And today I'm going to talk to you about implementing mental health first aid on our campus in hopes that some campuses may be willing and interested in replicating it on their campuses as well. I'd like to start first with health promotion and wellness in our department and the way that we look at implementing programs on our campus. We try to define what the problem is and then identify risk and protective factors that already exist on our campus. And then we really look at evidence-based or evidence-informed strategies to develop and test them to see if they're well received on our campus. And then we actually move into, if it's received well and we have good outcomes, then we look at replicating or expanding the initiatives. And so just looking at mental health first aid, in defining the problem, 75% of mental illnesses develop before the age of 25. And our student population is 2/3 graduate and 1/3 undergraduate. And so our student population really falls in this realm. From our Healthy Minds study, 22% of undergraduates and 29% of graduate students have been previously diagnosed with a mental illness. And then according to our most current ACHA, NCHA data, almost half of our students are reporting higher feelings of anxiety, depression, and stress. So those are some of the issues that exist at UChicago. And then when we look at the risks, what we hear consistently from students is that either they lack the knowledge of when to seek help and to see if what they're experiencing really rises to the occasion of needing some assistance, but then also where to seek help. While we try to do as much as we can for information that exists on campus, students still aren't aware of resources that we provide. Some of the assets that we do have on our campus, we have a well-resourced student counseling service, and they also provide Let's Talk, so that's something that's offered outside of the counseling center doors. They're located at different locations on campus, and it's an anonymous service so that students can come in and speak to a counselor anonymously. And then Health Promotion and Wellness provides many different preventative and proactive approaches to support students' mental well-being. And then we also have a registered student organization, Active Minds, on our campus. And so we have resources that exist. And so it's how to better make students aware of those resources. So we know that mental health first aid is proven to be effective through SAMHSA. And so that's why we really looked at this as an opportunity for us to try and pilot this program. We did pilot it in the 2015-2016 academic year, and we just targeted training staff and faculty in mental health first aid, but then we have expanded in subsequent years, which I'll get into in the upcoming slides. Another way to look at things from health promotion and wellness standpoint is from the social ecological model. And so mental health first aid aligns with individual skills, because what we are doing is we're training individuals to have the skills to have conversations with people they may be concerned about and refer them to the appropriate resources that exist on our campus. And then mental health first aid also helps from a community standpoint, because the ultimate goals are to increase help-seeking behaviors and also decrease stigma that may exist on our campus. Mental health first aid also aligns with the JED Foundation's Campus Mental Health Action Planning framework. And so as you'll see, not only are we able to identify students at risk, but then we also help increase help-seeking behaviors on our campus. And so I like to just show that so people can understand why, or the reasoning behind why we brought mental health first aid to our campus. We knew that it was evidence-based, and we wanted to try to implement this to see if we would have the outcomes that other universities have had in implementing this program. This is a logic model that we created. So when I spoke with our Dean of Students within the university about this program and trying to start this initiative on our campus, I shared this with her so that she could understand what would we need as far as staff time, financial resources, but then also what are the short and long-term objectives that we have with this initiative. And so some of the things that we contribute, we have staff time. So within health promotion and wellness, we currently have 3 instructors in mental health first aid, and we've also trained 4 additional instructors within our campus community. It also takes staff time to facilitate the training. Health Promotion and Wellness purchases the manuals, and we create printed materials that are distributed after the training. And then we use the Emma email system to not only register participants, but then also to communicate with those who have registered. We utilize SurveyMonkey for evaluation components. We've also collaborated with Linden Oaks Behavioral Health Services. I knew them from a prior position that I was in, and through that partnership and that collaboration, we are able to provide continuing education credits to everyone who goes through the mental health first aid training should they need them. And so moving on to the activities or the outputs for our logic model, obviously we're facilitating the training on our campus and evaluating the results that we see. But then we also looked at ways to develop resources that would be good takeaways for people to have after the training. We conduct quarterly luncheons, and then we continue to connect with different campus partners to talk about the training, the results that we've achieved, and to see if there are other pockets of populations on our campus that would be helpful to provide this training to. As far as participants, many of our deans of students have been trained in mental health first aid now, as well as our UCPD, or the U Chicago Police Department. We've also had many student services staff be trained, as well as college advising and housing. And then our dining staff, we're in conversations right now of how we can require this training of dining staff. And we also train faculty and students. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the short-term outcomes are to raise awareness of mental health issues and the fact that they are common, but also to increase participants' awareness of the campus resources that exist so that they know not only that they exist, but how they can reach out for help. And how can we also increase conversations around mental well-being and increase the identification of students who might be at risk that we may be concerned about. Long-term outcomes we hope to achieve is to decrease stigma around mental health on our campus, also increasing help-seeking behavior so individuals would reach out if they need assistance. And then another long-term outcome is to create a campus culture of care around mental health issues specifically. And so that's how mental health first aid can really feed into that, and those are some of the outcomes we hope to achieve. Some of the specifics I'd like to just share. There are several different modes to be utilized within mental health first aid. We use the adult version, and there's a higher education module. Our trainings are held in 1 8-hour day, and I know that that's a significant amount of time, but we did try to do 2 consecutive 4-hour days, and we found on that second day that sometimes there was attrition, so that's why we continue to remain consistent with the 1 8-hour day when we offer this training on our campus. The training itself, as well as the materials, are offered free of charge to anyone who participates. The cost of the manuals, as well as catering, is within Health Promotion and Wellness's budget. And we've changed things slightly. You have to maintain the fidelity of the program, so nothing can be done to the slides themselves. But when we talk, for instance, about the national statistics around mental health, we then, in our talking points, talk about U Chicago specific statistics, both from the NCHA survey as well as the Healthy Mind study. So those we utilize throughout the course so that it is tailored a bit in that way, because we're using U Chicago data to supplement the slides that Mental Health First Aid provides. We also tailor the scenarios slightly. And when I say to be U Chicago specific, it's because, as I mentioned, we have 2/3 graduate and 1/3 undergraduate students. And so some of the scenarios are about writing dissertations or P-sets and things of that sort, so that they're more consistent with U Chicago language. All of the participants, prior to or when they register, they actually complete the pre-test through SurveyMonkey. So we already have their pre-surveys completed before the training even begins. And then at the end of the training, we allow time so that all participants must complete the post-evaluation in order for them to receive their certificates that they've been trained in mental health first aid. And so that just gives you some of the specifics of how we've implemented it in our campus and how we found it successful. I just want to share as far as the number of individuals that we have had trained since inception. So as I mentioned, we started in as a pilot in 2015, 2016, and we had 99 staff and faculty who were trained at that time. The following year, we actually started opening it up as a pilot for students as well. So we trained 77 staff and faculty during that year, and then we also trained 36 students within 2 trainings that we held as pilots. From that, students were our big advocates for this program, and so we decided to offer in 2017, 2018, 1 student training per quarter, and then we continued to offer the trainings for staff and faculty. So as you'll see, our numbers increased significantly. We had 173 staff and faculty trained in 2017, 2018, and 131 students last year. As of this year, at this time, we currently have 142 staff and faculty that we trained in the full 8-hour training, but we are also now offering a 90-minute introduction to mental health first aid specifically for faculty. And through that, we've trained 78 faculty thus far. And then as far as students, we have 120 that we trained this year. Now, I just have an asterisk as far as this year's data because the staff and faculty numbers are through April 30th. We have 1 more training scheduled in June, and that training has 30 people registered at this time. So our staff and faculty going through the full 8-hour training would be comparable to what we had achieved last year. So as far as a total, we have 856 people trained to date in mental health first aid. I mentioned that we had created some resources for our campus as well. This mental health resource guide is something that we receive requests for quite consistently. Inside the document, on the left-hand side, we actually highlight many of the UChicago resources that are here to support students' mental well-being. And on the right-hand side of that, as the brochure opens up, it shows the different programs that exist that can help support students. So self-help and other support strategies that we talk about in the mental health first aid curriculum. And then on the back cover of that mental health resource guide, we also include national resources such as the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and things of that sort, so that people have it at their fingertips and that they can reference it once they leave the training. On the right-hand side, this How to Help a Friend is a wallet-sized pocket guide that we developed for students specifically and how they might be able to help friends who are experiencing distress while at UChicago. And so that also includes some tips and things to look for, as well as emergency contact information on our campus. We found that these are extremely helpful because the training is a 1 8-hour day, but then this is something that people can come back to and reference in the event that they have questions or need to know who to reach out to if they would like to refer people on our campus. A few other resources that we offer. We actually felt that it's important to bring people who have been trained in mental health first aid back together at least once a quarter. We're on a quarter system. And so once per quarter, we host luncheons where it's open to anyone who's been trained in mental health first aid. And so we do a deeper dive of campus resources. I'll give an example of our counseling center. So for one of the luncheons, they actually explained the intake process and what students can expect with that intake process. We also had our Office of International Affairs come and speak about resources for international students because a quarter of our population falls in that category. But it's also, these luncheons also serve as an opportunity to discuss things that may have arisen since the training, or people can discuss maybe some concerns that they have, or just availability of resources. And so many times, a lot of these luncheons are an opportunity for us to just talk in general and potentially identify opportunities to improve communication with the entire campus community. We also send out a quarterly newsletter to everyone who's been trained in mental health first aid. And this highlights newly trained folks, whether it's staff, faculty, or students. It also markets these quarterly luncheons so that people can register for upcoming luncheons. It lists upcoming training dates, and we've noticed that people who've been trained will use our newsletter regularly to refer other peers or colleagues so that they can participate in the training. And then it also covers any new mental health first aid information or legislation that may be coming out. So we find that this is just another avenue in which we can connect with people who've been trained and remain in contact so that if they have questions, they can reach out to us or our department. I'd like to just share some of the outcomes that we're pretty proud of. And the reason, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but we utilized mental health first aid because we wanted it to be covering all mental health issues. I know that there are other trainings that are out there more focused specifically on suicide prevention, and mental health first aid does cover that, and we talk through questions to ask if we are concerned that a student may be suicidal. But it also covers many different aspects where there may be change in behavior or things of that sort. And so that's why we chose to use this training for our campus specifically. And so these are just some of the outcomes. And I included pre and post and to show the difference between staff and faculty versus students. But you'll see, as far as individuals feeling confident, not only recognizing the signs that someone might be dealing with a mental health problem or crisis, but they also agree that they're likely to discuss their concerns with that student. And also we've seen significant increases in individuals feeling confident in their ability to help suicidal students seek help, and then also recommending the resources that exist, particularly around mental health or support services to individuals who might be experiencing some distress. So these are just some of the outcomes. This is actually cumulative. So it's something that we've seen consistently since 2015, 2016 when we first implemented it. And I think one of the most telling aspects of the outcomes that we achieved is that 98% of all participants would recommend mental health first aid to their peers or colleagues. And I think this is huge just in the simple fact that it is an 8-hour training. And so particularly for students, we offer these trainings on Saturdays for students, and so they are with us from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. And for them to continue to recommend their peers is a phenomenal aspect. And so we're very pleased with these results on our campus, and just the fact that it's been a lot of word of mouth to promote mental health first aid. And some of the key accomplishments I'd just like to highlight, we hosted an instructor training on our campus. And by that, I mean, we knew we wanted to train more individuals to be instructors in mental health first aid. And there is a cost associated with that to send individuals away, and then obviously with travel and things of that to cover them for that training period. The training itself is a full week from 8 until 5, Monday through Friday. And so UChicago supported us in training 6 additional instructors so that we could host the instructor training on our campus. I mentioned earlier that we have health promotion and wellness staff who are instructors, but then we also have 4 individuals outside of health promotion and wellness. We have one of our police officers who's trained as an instructor. We have the director of the Student Emergency Response System, the director of resources for sexual violence prevention, and an HR director who also serves as a dean on call and a sexual assault dean on call. And it's been a wonderful way for us to have different perspectives. We have 2 facilitators that provide each training, and we strive to provide 1 health promotion and wellness staff with 1 additional staff of the 4 that I mentioned, so that individuals and participants can receive different feedback from those instructors. So for instance, from the police department, when our captain is talking about the different resources that exist within UCPD, it's just a nice supplement for them to hear from health promotion and wellness as well. And with the training that we offer on our campus, we have not done much marketing at all. Much of the growth has been word of mouth. And I really think it gets at the 98% who want their peers and colleagues to attend as well, so that people are just speaking to others, talking to them about it, and encouraging them to participate. And so word of mouth has really been where that growth is. And it's also just to make it manageable for us. I know that we would be able to offer more trainings, but we try to sustain it with the current instructors that we have now. And so that's why we haven't done any targeted marketing outside of that. This training has also been required now for certain groups. So our Dean of Students within the college, Jay Ellison, had gone through the training and felt it was extremely important. And so he has required this training now for all of the college advisors. So as they hire new advisors, they're required to go through mental health first aid. It's also required for all resident heads and resident assistants. So we typically train them before the academic year starts. And then there's also been an increased request for closed sessions. And by closed sessions, I mean that we offer a training just for that department, and then all of their staff are trained at one time. So we've done that for career advancement as well for summer sessions. So staff who are going to be here for the summer and managing students during the summer months. And then also the Booth Executive MBA staff have been trained as well. I also briefly talked about this 90-minute faculty introduction to mental health first aid. That was something that I developed this year based on feedback from a dean of students in our biological sciences division. She had went through the full 8 hours and found the training extremely beneficial, but also understands that not all faculty will be able to complete the full 8 hours. And so she had asked if there was a way that we could develop a 90-minute introduction to mental health first aid. So we have since done that. And we implemented it this year, of which 78 faculty have been trained thus far. And it just gives an overview of mental health first aid. And we do encourage faculty who go through it and ask them if they're interested in the full 8 hours. And of the 78 who went through the 90-minute session, we've had 10 register for the full 8-hour training as well. So I haven't gone back to look at the data yet, but we do find that that's successful, and it's been something that more faculty are requesting now. So we'll be offering it on a regular basis. And some of the lessons learned, I like to always share what we've learned through this process. I mentioned that we tailored our talking points. I do believe that that is why it has been so successful on our campus, because when we talk about the national statistics, I think at our talking points, it really helps then to drive home the different messages if we're talking about mental health concerns, and then talk about UChicago students specifically and the demographics here. So that has been extremely successful. We send meeting invitations to everyone who registers so that it's in their calendar, and they can decline if they need to last minute, but at least it's a way that it keeps it on their radar so they don't forget about the training, because many times they'll sign up in advance. We also send follow-up emails now to students a week prior to their training. The students, we only offer 2 trainings now per quarter, and sometimes they'll sign up well in advance of a quarter. So for instance, in autumn quarter, they may sign up for the winter session. And because of that, we will send a reminder, and we found that that helps make sure that individuals actually come to the training rather than just sign up and not show. Also, I mentioned previously, all participants must take their post-evaluation prior to receiving their certificate in mental health first aid. And so as such, we have 100% participation in those post-evaluations, which really help with our evaluation results. And then I also check in quarterly with our instructors just to make sure that we're doing the training consistently. And then we're talking about it also as a group to see if there are questions that have arisen, because we're in the process of developing an FAQ document that will be housed on our website. We now are offering more staff trainings over the summer, because we've noticed that during the academic year, we used to host about 3 per quarter for staff and faculty. And many times we may only have 10 show up to the training because some people had conflicts arise. So now instead we're hosting them over the summer, and we typically have the maximum of 30 during that time. So we're very pleased with that change. And I want to just end by sharing my contact information, because we have found mental health first aid on our campus to be extremely helpful. And I just wanted to be able to provide this information to campuses who may be thinking about it or just wondering how it might work on your campus. This is a way in which you can share some results that we've achieved and hopefully plead the case of why it would be helpful for your own universities. But I'd also like to share my contact information. Julie Edwards at uchicago.edu is my email address, and my number is listed here. but I encourage anyone who has any questions or would like to learn more information about this program to please reach out to me. I am happy to speak with you about it, to talk about lessons learned, as well as who we needed to receive buy-in from to implement it on our campus. So I thank you all for your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you if you have any questions.